It's another loss. It's a sad Monday. I want a victory Monday.
You know, my dad used to say, want in one hand and poop in the other and see which one fills up first. I got a feeling we could be pooping in our hands for a long, long time before our want for a Raiders victory ever happens, my friend.
I thought the sadness, the purging, whatever you want to call it, the rebuild, I thought it was ended. And now we had 8 games to progress. But then I kind of woke up to the news that, everybody's talking, everybody wants to retire. The veterans are screaming to get out of there. We're going to discuss all that, but my goodness. So I guess the fire, no pun intended because I live in California, I guess the fire has not ended.
Yeah, first and foremost, man, prayers up for all those people that are dealing with that stuff, man. That's freaky. It's not just even Southern California, right? Like it's all over Southern and Northern California. The entire state, man, so just, major props to all those, beautiful men and women, man, that fight that stuff and put their lives on the line and dealing with all that, dude. It's crazy, man. It's just crazy. You flip on the news and see all that kind of stuff. So definitely thinking about all those folks and anybody that's in harm's way, man. It's scary stuff.
Yeah. I live pretty close to Malibu, Thousand Oaks, where, the smoke is. Let everybody know they can catch you during the week on your YouTube channel. Let everybody they can catch you where they can see you.
Yeah, check us out, youtube.com/Murf's Fan Cave. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Just recently, with your help, Mikey, we've eclipsed the 1,000 subscribers mark, and we are thankful for that. So please continue to support the channel, Murf's Fan Cave. And cool stuff going on. We have the audio versions of all the podcasts on the network, plus we have our Raiders Fan Radio live stream with me and Uncle Mosh, and that happens every Wednesday night. And so if you like watching Raiders content on YouTube, and if you're watching us, then you certainly do, then check us out over there at Murph's Fan Cave and watch us do the Raiders Fan Radio live stream. You will enjoy it.
Yeah, I will post a couple actual links to the YouTube page in the video description when we are done. Just wanted to let everybody know, apparently, it seems like every week we're having technical issues, but the show will progress. We'll keep going as long as we can, and we're going to hope to have a great show. So if audio cuts out, the feed cuts out, my apologies. So that's all I can say. You ready to do this, Murf?
I'm ready, my friend. Yeah, let's do it. Are we? Is rest in peace to Stan Lee? Is that in the lineup here? Have I not seen that, or should we talk about that now?
Yep, it's coming up in the headlines, breadlines, deadlines. They blow my mind, Murf. It's very close to Rent time.
You hate Rent?
Well, I love the musical, but not paying.
Yeah. Not the actual dollar exchange.
That's it. All right. Here's your headline. We'll get more into it in the game review for what that's worth. I don't even know if I can do game reviews. I'm too emotional. Raiders can't shock the Chargers or jumpstart any offense again. But in sad news, I woke up to find out Stan Lee, the Marvel icon, dies at the age of, and he's a character, and he will definitely be missed. And any quick stories about Stan Lee or anything that meant something to you growing up, Murf?
Yeah, well, he's just like there's certain creators, right, that have formed a lot of the fandom in my life, and whether that's George Lucas in the Star Wars universe, Al Davis in the Raiders universe, this man Stan Lee in the Marvel universe. I'm rocking my Punisher shirt today because I figure that's, the Punisher and the Raiders imagery are so similar. So, and Stan, while he didn't create the Punisher, he named Punisher, right? So anyway, so definitely want to recognize him, and he invented just so many iconic characters and so many iconic stories, and God bless us, we should all be so blessed to live to 95 years old. The guy lived an amazing full life. But to answer your question, I don't have any one particular story, but he's just one of those kind of guys that, storytelling is just part of what it is to be human. And the greatest storytellers, whether it's Shakespeare or whoever else, that narrative art is just an absolute gift. And it's just somebody for someone to do it at the level of a Stan Lee or I mentioned like a George Lucas here, whoever it may be that you choose, anybody that creates narrative art like that, it's amazing. And especially in nowadays, culture where we celebrate, pop culture the way that we do. And there's nothing bigger in the world in terms of entertainment than the Marvel universe right now. Right. And this was the guy. I mean, he was the guy. And so anyway, so just, a lot of cool memories I'll tell you my favorite cameos. Stan Lee's famous for his cameos. My favorite cameo is in a superhero movie. It's a comic book movie. It's Mallrats, 1995 Kevin Smith movie. And there's a scene. Oh, look you're wearing your Jay and Silent Bob shirt. Perfect. So in that movie, he has a scene with Jason Lee, and he kind of breaks down really what's important in life. And it turns out that it's love. It's not even comics, right? And you hear Stan Lee give this really fantastic monologue in that movie. And so anyway, so check it out if you haven't seen it. Mallrats, and God bless you, Stan Lee, man. It's pretty sad, Mikey. This one kind of stings a little bit, doesn't it? Despite the fact that he was, a long-lived human being. Yeah, just in summary, what's your favorite Stan Lee character, possibly that he invented or helped make? Yeah, I got to go with either Punisher or Black Panther. One of the two, I would say Black Panther because he created Black Panther. Like he created, he's responsible for, a handful of characters. Well, not a handful, a bunch of them, the entire X-Men and Spider-Man and whatnot. But as far as the ones that he's directly responsible for, I'd say Black Panther, probably my favorite. But Punisher, even though he's not the one that he didn't create the character, he just named him. But so I would maybe say Punisher. So one of those two, that's kind of hedging my bet there, but one of those. Yeah, I recommend if you guys can download or watch, I think it's called The History of Comics. And there's a whole episode dedicated to Stan Lee and how people helped him and he helped people, but he became the face of Marvel, the franchise. It's a great watch. My favorite would be Spider-Man, whether he completely invented it or not. Spider-Man was my go-to. And in summary, in the final last words of Stan Lee and being missed, I just want to say, Excelsior. Okay, let's get into the Raider news. There's wildfires that canceled the practice for the Rams and limited the Raiders. Tragedy. Hope it gets better for everybody. I don't want to go into conspiracies. Nobody likes that. But direct energy weapons. I just thought that was funny. Here it is. Adrift in Oakland. A season of distrust and uncertainty is sinking the Raiders. We're all clearly watching it. I put the storm is over an asterisk because I thought I'm not here to hate and really nitpick on every single decision. I need to be a better man moving forward. But I'm just going to ask in summary, from your point of view and mine, what can be fixed moving forward from your perspective, Murf? I think they need to, at this point, I think it's clear that they need to fix Derek Carr. It's debatable what the actual problem is, whether it's fear of injury, frustration with production, frustration with teammate performance. There's a lot of different things that are debated. You could even throw in frustration with coaching staff in there. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a lot of different reasons why he's not carrying the kind of body language and whatever. Even just you heard him in the press conference here after this last game. He's defeated, and you can't have your starting quarterback be defeated. You know what I mean? So they've got to fix that. Now, what that is, I don't know, and I'm not pretend to even know the answer because I don't even really know the question, and that's not your question. But again, what is it that's got him? I don't know, but I do know this is that you've got to have a reliable franchise quarterback to win in the NFL. And whether it's Derek Carr or somebody else, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they've got to get that figured out. And being that he's the man now, today, I say between now and the end of the year, that's something that the Raiders have to fix. You have to right that ship. You know what I mean? I mean, we saw Derek Carr play on bad teams before, but we didn't see him act like this. We didn't see that kind of body language that we see out of him now. Back then, you know what I mean? You think back to the 10 losses in a row, right? He wasn't acting like this, but that was pre-injury and all that. So again, is it the injury? I don't know, but whatever that is, that's what they got to fix first and foremost. Yeah, it's pretty scary. I mean, there's so many things that we probably need to fix in every aspect, whether it be on the field or in the locker room with chemistry or trust or respect. I think there's been so many mistakes
with non-communication on everybody's part that it's just, there's like a cloud floating. And then nobody can perform at their best because of the changes that are happening. And then it's building in the media, it's invading the locker room. Then they see it on the field. Like, I don't know what you call it. I'm just going to call it evil. Everything is going on, and it's really affecting every single one of them, even Gruden and Mark Davis. And I don't know. I think they need a sit down. They need to go to a campfire. I think they all need to like literally just man up. Every single one of them, Gruden, Mark Davis, whoever else is taking the blame, and they just need to come together as a family. Do whatever you can. And if people leave the family, then we just we got to start over, because the rebuild is happening, but to some of them, they're still holding out, from my opinion. And I just think they need to communicate. That's all you can do now is communicate and start from there.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I mean, that's the foundation of it, right? That's where it all starts. And look, they can't get any lower. And so, you know, I was thankful to see what Mark Davis said today. You know, he came out, and I think whether you like it, not you, just you out there, whether you like it or not, whether
you got to say the proverbial you. We got to get that in every episode.
Okay, all right. So the proverbial you, whether you like it or not, you know, whether you buy into it, accept it, whatever. You know, Mark Davis today demonstrated, you know, leadership. And that's what you do, is that you try to galvanize the people that, you know, that you represent. Your organization, doesn't matter if it's a football team or a congregation or a corporation or whatever, the people that make up your team, you have to try to galvanize them, and you have to try to, you know, you have to take the blame, and then you have to try to, you know, rally them up and enable their own successes. And that's what he did today. And so again, it's up to you, Raider Nation, whether you accept it or not. But I thought that was at least a good demonstration. But I said that to say this, is that because, yeah, I mean, we're at the bottom, man. We're at the absolute bottom. And when you see the quarterback with that body language, when you hear the, you know, John Gruden's quotes, you know, after the game, I mean, they're all the way at the bottom. And now there's rumors of players retiring. You know, we don't know if that's Jordy Nelson or whoever, but people are on their way out the door. We already have seen players retire. We've seen them move on from other players. Like, it doesn't get any lower, man. So this is the time. Then you know, it's you got to rise up. You know what I mean? And that's going to take a little while. It's not going to happen overnight.
I just want to win. And I'm not saying this to hate on why Bruce Irvin is gone or Amari Cooper, but like, it seems like the players that are leaving are winning in some respect for being disgruntled, because he got an $8.5 million contract this year with the Raiders. No, he's on waivers. He still gets the money because he cleared waivers. So he gets $3.5 million still from us. Then he signed for $3.8 million with the Falcons. And it just feels like he won because he got even more money. And I don't know. I just want to win somehow. Even in the money department. But Bruce signed with the Falcons. What did you think of his debut or the process of Bruce Irvin signing with the Falcons?
The thing that stands out to me most, Mikey, is that he wears the number 52. And if that doesn't show you a clear case of butthurt, then I don't know what does. And whether it costs the Raiders or not, doesn't matter to me. He's gone, and I think we win.
Yeah, I wish we would have won in the money department, you know, got a little bit of money back for the franchise moving forward. But you're right, him and Khalil Mack, there was a lot of Twitter exchange and all this, and he picked the number 52. 51 was taken, but, you know, clearly there was a divide, and he was talking out in the locker room this season. So it's gone and done with. I don't know how he did in the game. Did he have any sacks? I didn't really look into it.
I don't think so. I didn't get it.
Go on. Sorry.
No, we're good.
Yeah, no, to cut you off. You know, he played now 2 games, and what are your thoughts on his debut with the Cowboys and everything? I thought he showed like more heart than he showed the previous 8 games with the Raiders, like trying to run routes. Like, he just had more passion, and it kind of hurt me because it's like, why did you show the passion now? Like, he was going like this, trying to break open, get free. You know, I saw the pride in him, and I was like, man, where was that last year?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm with you. A couple things there. So I think whether it's Mac or whoever else, or any player. I mean, we saw it out of Golden Tate last night with the Eagles. Anytime a player moves on from another team, there's a little bit of extra spark to them. You would think that as professional athletes, they're giving you all they possibly could every game, but they're also human beings, and so you get motivated by different things, and they want to. There's a lot of pressure on Amari Cooper to demonstrate his value, not only on the field, but he's trying to earn a new contract. You know what I mean? And so, and he's now playing for the richest organization in all of sports, or at least in the NFL. And so, he's trying to demonstrate that worth. And so there's going to be a little bit extra on it. But here's what I do think about. It's funny is that just like with Khalil Mack, all of a sudden now Amari Cooper is the greatest wide receiver in the history of the NFL. I don't know how it was possible for the Dallas Cowboys to exist before they got Amari Cooper, because if you listen to Chris Collinsworth last night, oh my gosh, now this was it. Like, wow, they finally got the guy. But like, give me a freaking break, man. It's so funny. If you don't think there's a bias towards the Raiders in the media, I mean, all you got to do is watch one of these games, one of these players. It was like, we watched Khalil Mack get 5 sacks in a game one time, and it was like it would barely on the radar, and then it becomes a Bear, and it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's generational talent. Oh my God, he's so good. How could the Raiders let him go? Same thing with Amari Cooper. Oh, how could they let him go? Like, yeah, we know he's good. We get that. We've been watching him for 4 years. We know he's a good player, but he's not worth what it is that the Raiders would have had to, or not only what the Raiders got for him, but now what the Cowboys are getting ready to have to pay for him. Wait till he starts disappearing here for a week at a time, Cowboy fan, and you'll have it all figured out too. I promise you.
Yeah, I mean, the piling on, from the media, well, it's just continuing, but I hope it'll stop in the next week, or the implosion that is apparently going to happen this week. I think that'll hopefully be the end of the explosion. But you're right. I just wish I would have saw more from Amari Cooper last year or even early on this year. But the media is they're asking questions. Will the Raiders make the Cowboys? I mean, will the Raiders make the playoffs before the Cowboys? And, so they're hating on the Cowboys because they didn't look so good, but they got a big victory last night. But let's listen to Colin Cowherd talk about the Raiders making the playoffs. I just thought it was a fun listen.
All right, buy, sell, hold. The Raiders will make the playoffs again before the Cowboys.
Listen, I think we're over dramatizing a little Dallas's plight. Excellent front seven, star running back, elite left tackle. Let's slow down on this. Okay, the Raiders have 1 playoff appearance in 15 years. The Cowboys have 6. Okay? The Raiders are man overboard. And the Raiders don't even have a home game next. They don't even have a home next year. So, John, sell. The Cowboys will get back to the playoffs before the Raiders.
It just hurts to see because, I mean, whether you want to hate or not, he was spitting out the stats or the facts of the playoffs, and that just and the guy's like, sell. It made me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, and also too, and it's funny how these media folks, how they leave out details to further serve their own stories and their own opinions. And, so Cowherd leaves out the fact that they being the Cowboys play in the NFC East, which is like one of the worst divisions in football, right? And we play in one of the best divisions in football. So it's like, if you're going to make the playoffs in, you're in the AFC West, then, you're fighting for a wild card unless you're going to literally be undefeated. If you're going to try to win, where these guys, like the Cowboys are what? They're like 4-5 and they're in first place or you know what I'm saying, or whatever, or at least within distance of the Redskins, whatever it may be, but you get my point. And so that's just funny to me how they kind of leave that stuff out. And here's what I would say too, Mikey, is that I would rather, look, as much as this sucks, okay, and there is only so much, my hypocrisy knows bounds, okay? I understand it'll only go so far as what's his name? Doc Holliday used to say, my hypocrisy will only go so far, right? So my hypocrisy only goes so far. Look, I get it that the team is 1-8, man. Like, there's no apologizing for 1-8. There's no excuse for 1-8. But I would rather be 1-8 than 3-5. You know what I mean? Or 4-5 or whatever the numbers add up to be. You know what I'm saying? The point is that at the end of the year, I would rather be completely at a loss than to be 8-8, because the 8-8 teams, like, they kind of get stuck in the middle. You know what I mean? I don't want to be a Jeff Fisher team and just kind of get stuck in the middle and just kind of meander our way through a bunch of, 8-8 seasons. Now, if we're going to be bad, then let's just be all the way bad. Let's just, you know what I mean? Let's just go ahead and go through it. And look, it sucks, but that's the way it's a better way to get better, right?
The basis of the report was saying after that loss last week, they were like, they'd rather be the Raiders in terms of draft picks in the future, in a rebuild, as opposed to where the Cowboys are with Dak Prescott needing another contract. Are they good enough to win? Do they have draft picks or whatever? They got all these injuries. It was just a good thought, but man, you're right about the AFC. This year, the AFC was bad for a few years back in the days, but we would still be in the playoff hunt if we were in the NFC West possibly this year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, and another, I don't know, the stories, they just bother me. I got to get out of that mindset, but like Patriots signed safety Obi Melifonwu. Why do I say it wrong? Obi Melifonwu. Where did it go wrong? Why did it go wrong with the Raiders? I mean, there's no guarantee he's a success for the Patriots, but they signed him to a 2-year deal. They gave him upfront money. That means they believe in him as much as apparently the Raiders do not. So I don't know. Where did it go wrong? Your thoughts on this?
Well, he was brought in to be a coverage safety on tight ends, because when you look in our division, whether it's Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates or, obviously Travis Kelce, or the times we go outside the division and we got to play, the Patriots and cover Gronkowski or whatever. We have had a tight end issue with our football team, or coverage issue, for a long, long time. And so Obi Melifonwu is a freak, man. He's big, he's athletic, he can cover, and so they brought him in to be that type of a safety. But for whatever reason, and, it's been floated out there that there's a little bit of a heart issue, and what I mean by heart issue is a care for the game and a devotion to the game. And look, if we know one thing about John Gruden, love him or hate him, if you're not as devoted to the game of football as he is, then you're not going to be around for very long. So if there were any question there, then that would be no surprise why Obi Melifonwu found his way out of town. And I'm not going to give away all my secrets here, Mikey. And I'm not in any way affiliated or connected to the team, but I will tell you this. I actually have a source and I'm not just saying this, I promise, I'm not blowing smoke. I actually have a source on this, and I know why he went to the Patriots. And it's because there is some certain connectivity there between someone and the Patriots. And he went there not necessarily as a favor, but he went there under the idea that the Patriots and Belichick could maybe develop him, because they've done the same with other players that are related to this. And I know that's being very vague, but I'm just saying this. There's a reason that it's the Patriots and it wasn't anybody else. There's a reason that 30 other teams passed on signing Obi Melifonwu, and that the Patriots were the ones that did it. So there was no surprise to me there at all that was the reason that it happened. And look, he's a good kid. I've actually interviewed this guy. He's been on Raiders Fan Radio. I've had him on the show. He was fun, man. He was a great interview. He was a good sport. We did a spelling contest where because he had such a tough name to spell, where he was spelling his teammates' names. Like we had a blast with Obi Melifonwu. I like the guy. So I wish it would have worked out the Raiders, and it didn't. So I'm going to wish him luck there with the Patriots. I hope that if he plays the Raiders, it doesn't impact us, obviously. But outside of that, man, he's a good kid, man. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, he's also, I think he went to college or grew up in the Boston, Massachusetts area. So they call it a homecoming for Obi, because he was born and raised or went to school
UConn
in that area.
He went to UConn. Yeah.
There you go. But again, that's why they said, he's coming home. But it's all good, man. Good luck. It's just, I wish it would have worked out, and I don't know what went wrong. I can't answer anything anymore. So, but here it is. This another JaMarcus Russell story came out, and this is the one you told me on our show. In one of our first initial shows, you said JaMarcus Russell would get tapes to study, and then he'd come back and say that he watched the tapes and they'd prove him wrong. So here's the official story. During the JaMarcus Russell days, Raider coaches didn't believe he was watching game film, so they gave him blank tapes to watch. The next day, he came in saying to the coaches, "Hey, coaches, yeah, I watched the blitz packages." But again, the tapes, I think that's beautiful. Do you have any other JaMarcus Russell stories?
Well, I got stories in relation to this. So Kirk Morrison originally told this story, the one that I referred to, and when I told you about it, and it was actually a DVDs, is what Kurt Morrison said. And so then this last week, I had you remember Randy Hansen? He was the guy that got knocked out by Tom Cable, had his jaw broken. Do you remember that, Coach? Yeah. So I did an interview with him. It actually released as a 3-part series. It's the Randy Hansen tapes, and so definitely check that thing out. It's fascinating, and he drops some truth bombs. Mikey, you have your big conspiracy about the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. There's some inside information about that game that not only confirms part of what you believe, but it confirms a lot of what I believed. And the truth is actually, like most things, right in the middle. And so, and Randy Hansen reveals all of that. But also what he reveals on that is I asked him about this story, and he said, well, he goes, it wasn't tapes. He goes, if anything, it was DVDs because we didn't have tapes in the facility because this is when Randy was there. And he said, and I will tell you this also, Murf, he said, if this is true, Al Davis didn't know about it because this is quote me on this. This is what Randy says, because Al Davis didn't pay coaches to trick players. He paid coaches to coach players. And if Al would have found out that anything like this were true, he'd have fired them on the spot. So I don't know if it's true or not. I think it is. And I think that Al was starting into that, those were when Al was struggling in those days. It was towards the end of his life, and he wasn't in tune to the organization as he would have been once upon a time. So if somebody did like that, I think that the DVD portion of it is true, and I think it probably happened that somebody was looking for a gotcha on JaMarcus. But that whoever that coach was that did it is lucky that Al didn't find out because the Godfather would have had him whacked.
Yeah, I think they were DVDs. Whatever technology is there, they use. But I think the general term for it, because it's so old school in football, is the general term is tapes, game tapes, I'm sure they meant DVDs. But that's just a great story, where he put the money out in front of the rookie show where he threw the money on the floor.
Yeah.
It's great. But hey, I got to listen to that Tom Cable interview thing that you got going on there. I got to hear that story. I will have the link in the show after.
It's fascinating.
Go for it.
That time of the Raiders. I mean, we refer, during that Lane Kiffin era, that was the most dysfunctional time of the Raiders. That was at its highest dysfunction between, when Lane Kiffin was hired to when Tom Cable took over to when Hugh Jackson came in, like all that run of the Raiders, even as bad as it is now, was not as dysfunctional as it was then. And what epitomized the dysfunction was the literal fight between the coaches when this man had his jaw broken by Tom Cable. And we got him. He's been quiet for 10 years. He's been silent, and he's getting ready to move out of the country, and he wanted to get everything off his chest. He wanted to get the truth out there, and he chose us because we are long-form storytelling on a podcast where he didn't want to do a quick interview on ESPN or on NFL Network. And so, I mean, I was flattered that he would be willing to reach out to us, and he chose us. But so that's why I broke it up into 3 parts. But if you're a Raider historian, if you just love the history of the Raiders like Mikey and I do, then you'll love this stuff. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating to hear about what it was like inside the walls of Alameda back then during the highest form of dysfunction that was the Raiders.
Yeah, I can't wait. I will post the link down below when I can. Apparently, again, during the show, we are experiencing internet issues. I keep getting these little pops. So we're just going to push through this and hopefully have a great show. Hopefully you can hear me, Murf. Do any of the Raiders make the Pro Bowl in 2000 or this year or 2019?
I think Rodney Hudson better make it. I mean, when you talk about an O-line that's not only beat up the way that they are, but has struggled at the times, even when they're healthy, And but he hasn't. He's been a stalwart on our football team. He's a captain for a reason. And frankly, Mikey, not only do I think he's the best player at his position on our team, he's one of the best players at his position in the NFL. And I think that's definitely to be celebrated as Rodney Hudson. So I hope he makes a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to pick a player from every team somehow, but I don't really know if there's any Pro Bowlers on the roster. And if you have to go with a Raider, I think Rodney Hudson would be the choice. So, but again, with Derek Carr being sacked so much, will he get the votes? Again, they have to bring somebody in. I don't know the rules, but does anybody really deserve to go to the Pro Bowl?
I don't think you have to. I know MLB does that where each team at least has one member of the All-Star team, but I don't think they do that in the Pro Bowl, do they? Maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, who else? Like that's it, right? Like, I don't know. We'll see. We're only halfway through the season. We got a long way to go, believe it or not. It feels like we don't, but we still got a long way to go. We're game over at least of halfway through the season. So who knows? I mean, Maurice Hurst had a pretty good game the other day. So we'll see if the big man keeps going. How cool would that be if we get a rookie make the Pro Bowl, right? So, you never know.
It's just scary to think that a few years back we had like 6 or 7 of them, and now there's a possibility of having none. Yeah. It just hurts my spirit. All right, let's get into this. I watched a story the other day on Mike Shanahan and Al Davis. And from your point of view, what's the biggest Raider beef that you've ever experienced in your life?
Well, the biggest one to me, and I wasn't old enough to really know it at its heyday, but the biggest one is Al Davis versus Pete Rozelle. This rivalry between these two men went on from 1966 when the AFL and NFL merged all the way through to when Pete Rozelle resigned in 1989, and it started off because because Al kind of, facilitated the merger, but Pete was the guy that got all the credit for it. And, Al Davis, he was at time petty and he wanted credit. He was all about getting credit for things, and he didn't get any credit for the AFL NFL merger. Certainly not like what Pete Rozelle did. And Al resented that. And it goes all the way through to the times when the Raiders won the Super Bowl, the second time, when we beat the Eagles. You see, and it's a grainy video, but there's a video of Pete Rozelle handing Al Davis the trophy, and he deliberately has 2 hands on it so he doesn't have a free hand, so he doesn't have to shake Al Davis's hand. And then when Al moved him down there to LA, I mean, he sued the league. He didn't, just these guys butted heads for the better part of 30 years. And so that to me is the ultimate Raiders rivalry, because it was Al versus Pete, which essentially made it Al versus the NFL.
I love it. I was actually going to say, Al versus the NFL for my step further and say Al Davis versus the world. Al Davis versus the world. How about that? Okay, so just to let you know, Murf, I know you can hear me. Stream keeps going out online, but we're going to continue the show. And if I need to upload it later with my video content, I will do so. So hopefully, you're still online with me for the rest of the show, Murf. Okay, this was interesting. I don't know if you play video games, but they got a football skin in Fortnite, the video game. And let's look at it, how it looks in the video game, play as a Raider. What are your thoughts? Look at this. I think it looks stupid. I mean, I love the Raiders, but it looks stupid.
Yeah, I'm not a big Fortniter. My kids will play it a little bit. They used to play it a lot more when it first came out, when it and PUBG first came out. So a lot less now. But I did show them this picture of the Raiders being a skin in Fortnite, and they got a big kick out of that. They thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, why not, man? I mean, heck, whatever. Look, this is the biggest game in the world right now. So if that gets the Raiders that much more exposure, then that's cool. I'm down.
Shooting people in a football jersey, and a helmet. Don't see the appeal. All right, so here's the game review portion. We got a couple of headlines to get to. Raiders can't shock the Chargers or jumpstart any offense again. Give me your initial views or thoughts of the game, just from the outside perspective.
As oddly enough, I was encouraged by a lot of it. I mentioned Maurice Hurst a little bit ago. I mean, he was just, He had himself a game. I thought he looked pretty good, and some other players did as well. But I made mention a few shows ago about how great teams make plays. That John Facenda's famous quote that great players aren't always great, but they're always great when they have to be. And championship teams, playoff teams come up with plays and crucial moments, and whether it's Jared Cook dropping the ball on a certain first down conversion to continue a drive, or it's Worley doing a great job driving on a pass to pick it off and doesn't come up with the interception, or Tyre Whitehead batting a ball up in the air, not coming up with the interception, or even anybody else after the ball gets batted to get into a position to catch that. Like these repeated times during the course of the game where, the Raiders just don't come up with the play, or the 4th and 1, you know what I mean? Like just not being able to punch the ball. It's like, when you look at these things, again, a championship team, playoff team, they're converting those. They're making those plays. So our players are in the right positions. They're essentially putting themselves in spots to make the plays. They're just not finishing it. They're just not closing it out. And so, think about those. If 2 of those plays that I just mentioned go the other way, it's a completely different game. Like we might even win. So I don't know. So that was my biggest takeaway, is that we were just so close, man, on so many.
You got a great view of the game. I mean, you're right. Unfortunately, I still got my hate blinders on when I'm watching, so everything pisses me off. Every single decision. I don't know why they didn't put the ball in Derek Carr's hand on that 4th and goal line to Jared Cook. They gave it to Dwayne Harris. It's just like the Marshawn Lynch play. It's like I feel like those plays. Give it to your best players. Believe in your best players. And they didn't do it again. But I don't see anybody getting better. Whether the coaches are coaching for the players we got now, I just don't see any progression. I know it's only game 1 after the purge and all this, but I'm just worried, because I don't see nothing good. Again, that's from my perspective, and I'm trying to change that. But, man, I'm scared. I don't know if we have any talented players under this system, or if they're even trying to make the system better, build a play call or a scheme around the players that are there, because maybe they know the players are not going to be there next year. So the coaches are not really trying to figure out their traits or what they're good at. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing the coaches try to, make their players better. And I don't see the players even willing or have the talent to make themselves better. I don't see anything good, Murph.
Yeah, of course, I don't agree necessarily, and I thought they were drastically improved week over week. When you look at that game that we saw against the Niners, man, I mean, we literally had no defense, and everybody was consistently out of position, especially in the secondary. They were confused. They didn't understand their assignments. Their eyes were in the wrong spots. I mean, you can name, there's a billion different reasons why we, made that Nick Mullins look like Joe Montana. And so, but that didn't happen this week. The defense was making plays. I mean, heck, there was here's another play for you that could have gone the other way on the roughing the passer. That play, I forget which one it was, which one of the guys that came in that finished off Rivers, but he kind of picked him up a little bit, and it was the right call. Look, I don't like the rule, but it was the right call in terms of the spirit of the rule. But that went from going from us sacking the Chargers to an 11-yard loss to instead giving them 10 yards and an automatic first down. You know what I mean? So if those plays go the other way, the complexion of this football game is completely different. So I thought they definitely showed up because we weren't getting pressure in the Niner game. We weren't getting pressure in a lot of games. This was the first game in a long time we've been getting pressure. And I'll give you one other thing, though. I will be curious to watch how this unfolds. And I mentioned at the top of the show about how we've got to fix Derek Carr. And now whether you could say it, the 4th and 5 play at the end of the game where he throws it away. And, Jalen Richard is his quote only option. And Jalen wasn't open, so he got rid of it, whatever. But there is another play that was a little bit more alarming to me. And it almost came within a few plays of each other in terms of Raiders on offense and Chargers on offense. There was one where the Chargers were on offense and we blitzed heavy. And Phillip kept his head up, moved around a little bit, dumped it off to Gordon, and then there goes off Melvin Gordon. I believe it was the one where he scored the touchdown, okay? So he took off for like 60 yards or whatever it was. Almost the same thing the Chargers did to us on a heavy blitz, and Derek, instead of maintaining his posture in the pocket, and look, I'm not Derek Carr, so I don't know what he saw, but it looked to me in watching it and slowing it down that he prematurely started to duck and move. Okay, now you can attribute that to injury, the fact that he's gotten sacked so much. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, he kind of moved out. And when you look at before the pressure all the way gets there, and he's already, again, prematurely starting to move, and if you look out into the flat, Jared Cook had chipped an end and was now off into the flat, and he's literally turned around looking at Derek, like getting his hands up like, I'm open. And he's by himself. There's nobody around. But Derek Carr's not looking at him because he's cringing. He's pulling away. He's shying away from contact before the contact got there. That's somewhere I'm definitely highly critical of the team, and highly critical of the line, first and foremost, for not protecting him. And second, he's gun shy. So anyways, I don't know where we started on that. I started rambling on you there, but that was just something else I noticed from the game, that we've got to get that stuff fixed.
Yeah, the defensive player was Jonathan Hankins on that referee call, which was ridiculous. I don't understand it in the NFL. And look, I'm going to throw the hit again on Carr as well. I mean, every week it's something. I don't know if he made a conscious decision, this is a conspiracy, to play himself out of Oakland or get off the team. I don't know what's going on. It's very scary situation. I don't know if Gruden will want him next year if the play continues this way, if it doesn't get better. It's just a very frustrating time for this entire team.
Mike,
and,
Mikey, this is the first time. And look, I love Derek Carr a lot. I think he's great. I love him on and off the field. I think he's an excellent representation of our football team, of himself. You know what I mean? Like, I like everything about Derek Carr. This was the first week that I've ever thought after the game was over, well, maybe there is a world where it's best for both if he moves on. And look, and I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that's like, oh, we need to get rid of Carr. That's not me. I'm not me at all. I'm all about but 5 years in, $25 million a year, and this is what we're getting out of him. Look, and I'm not even saying that he shouldn't be the way he is. When you're on pace to get sacked more than, setting records for most sacks or times getting sacked, I get it. And he's had broken backs and broken fingers and broken legs, and I get it why he might be the way that he is, but that doesn't help us win football games. That doesn't help the Raiders. So is there a scenario where it's best if he moves on and we move on from him? After this week, Mikey, first time ever, and you know me, I love this guy. So I'm really hedging my bet by saying this, but might not be a bad idea, man. I even hate to say that. I can't believe it's even coming out of my mouth. But there might be a world where it's better off for both of us. I mean, the proverbial us.
It's a sad situation, and a lot of players, let's just be honest, be the segue into this next segment. They want off the team. And I don't know if Derek is one of them that's starting to be in that faction. I would hope not, because he says he wants to be a Raider. So Gruden had a press conference. John Gruden had a press conference, after the game, and he said it sucks now and all that. And apparently a Raiders veteran in the locker room shouted out, "I got to get the F out of here." They didn't name the veteran that said it, but apparently it was yelled out in the locker room when the reporters were doing it. They didn't name the source yet. Your thoughts on Gruden being defeated and not even giving any optimism in the press conference, and who was the veteran?
Well, there's where our takes differ and our perception of what comments were. When you listen to what Gruden's comments were, Let me see if I got him here. He says, this will be a year that a lot of us will never forget. It's painful. It's hard. It will be hard to sleep again and get up in the morning, but we are going to keep working hard. And he made a declaration to the team that basically looked like, if this is where we're going to grow from, like this is where we're going to get better. We can only go up from here. And if you choose to be a part of it and to play your ass off, then there's going to be great things to come. And I think that's what Gruden is saying, is that, look, what's what we all know. Like, it doesn't get any worse than this. Like, it can get one win worse than this, and that's it, right? So, because we've only won one game. So that's what he's saying. And in reference to the player, there wasn't like he yelled it out in like a conference or anything. It was more that he said this to the reporters and passerby, that he said it was Gutierrez and Vic Tafer and Jerry McDonald, even I want to say was there. But anyways, it was a handful of reporters there, and he said that. And I've never heard Jordy publicly curse, but my guess is that it's Jordy. Now the rumor is that he's hurt. Him and Bryant are both hurt, and that being with his injury that he's looking at hanging him up. So my money is on Jordy Nelson, but I don't have any inside source there on that. But this does not surprise me. I mean, if you're one of those guys and, one of those veterans, and you're, playing a handful of snaps a game or getting targeted a handful of times, and the team is bad and you're not getting the kind of play that you want, and you're on the twilight of your career, I could see it. Yeah. And frustration. Yeah. I mean, I would, people say stuff like this. I would say something like, gosh darn, I got to get the F out of here. I could see that. Yeah. I mean, it's not, again, they're humans, so I don't necessarily even begrudge the player. How else do you want the guy to feel after something like this? Now, look, see you, goodbye. We're Raider fans. We're not player fans. So whoever it is, have a nice rest of your life. Good luck in retirement. But, you weren't obviously whoever it was probably wasn't doing much to contribute to the team's success anyways. So, you know what I mean? Like, no loss there. But but I mean, I don't begrudge anybody for saying that.
Mark Davis apparently spoke to Paul Gutierrez and admitted he is to blame. Now you got the owner as well taking the blame, which I expected this years ago. But Mark Davis spoke on it now, and he spoke at length to Paul Gutierrez. And your thoughts on accepting the blame for the actual 1-8 start this season? Not for everything in general. Do you believe Mark Davis is to blame for the play on the field and the coaches and the decisions?
I mean, yeah, ultimately he's the one that makes the call on who to bring in to run the football team. And when those people fail to run the football team at the, kind of success rate that is expected, then it's his fault. I mean, I really enjoyed this article, and I really gained a lot of confidence and respect in Mark Davis for this. You can make fun of Mark Davis for a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, he's increased the overall value of the Raiders by $1 billion since taking over. And look, I don't agree with some of the hirings that he's made. I don't agree with even some of the patience that he's had. He was way more patient with Dennis Allen than I ever would have been. He's been more patient with Reggie McKenzie than I think a lot of other owners would have been. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to be critical of Mark about, but in what he did today, he is exemplifying what it is to be the leader of an organization. Again, as I mentioned, and Mikey, I've studied leadership a lot in my life and earned degrees in it. And that's what in my real life, that's what my passion is leading in organizations, and have had a lot of hands-on experience in what that looks like. Okay. And mostly in the corporate world, but just to give you an idea, but I mean, the Raiders are a company, and the Raiders are, an organization, a privately held organization, just like another, business may be. And this is what the boss is supposed to do. This is what the CEO is supposed to do. When things aren't going well, this is what he's supposed to do. And what it does is that it makes for the attention, the good, the bad, the everything, to then get turned onto him. Because if you think about it, everything was on John Gruden. Everything was starting to stack up from the floor to the ceiling on top of John Gruden all of the criticism, all of the hatred, all of everything. So what's the boss doing? He's stepping in and he's taking those arrows in the back for John Gruden. And I think that's strong. And I think that he's also doing another thing that the Raiders hadn't done a lot of, and that's holding people accountable. I mean, you and I have talked about how important it is for like Derek Carr to hold his teammates accountable. Well, Derek Carr's not doing that, but Mark Davis is. And he's calling people out. And I think when you're 1-8, it's appropriate to call people out. It's okay to hold people accountable. It's okay to highlight the fact that, look, this guy, and this guy, you've kind of let us down. You're kind of not doing your job. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're not doing it, he's not belittling people. He's not doing it in the moment. This is after the fact. He's like, look, we're not doing what we need to be doing. And here's some people that we expected things to be different from and that didn't produce. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, absolutely whatsoever. So kudos to Mark Davis. I'm glad he did what he did. And like you said, hopefully this is the point, the springboard where we can now move on from it and start to grow into a positive direction.
Yeah, I mean, I had my breakthrough a couple weeks ago. I went live online, started screaming, yelling, crying. Me and you, we got in our little tussles or whatever you want to call it. But like, it happened for me a couple of weeks ago, but I'm just proud. It sounds stupid, but like, I'm happy to see this now. We can continue blaming, but they stepped up and they're going to take it on their shoulders. And I'm just happy that we're at an impasse where hopefully we can move forward because we need it. But you said calling out people, Mark Davis. He was asked about Reggie McKenzie's job and, who's to blame for the year. And he said Reggie's picks in previous seasons. And he, in the article, I believe I read a portion of it, he said he needs to finally have a sit down with Reggie McKenzie and discuss their future. I thought that happened last year or even 4 weeks ago, but apparently Mark Davis was busy in Vegas. Sarcasm, but there it is. So do you think Reggie will be the scapegoat fired for his indecisions and his bad draft picks and everything, or before the season? Do you think it'll be at the end of the season or before?
Yeah, I don't know. Mike Holmgren is kind of reemerged in his presence in the NFL, of course, and he was not only visiting the Raiders, but he also went on and was talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs the other day. So he's kind of spread it around a little bit. It hasn't just been with the Raiders, but I think that there's, so I don't know if he's a candidate or not, but it would not surprise me, Mikey. The short answer to your question about McKenzie, yeah, it would not surprise me. And look, I love the idea of Reggie McKenzie. I love his pedigree, I love his work history, where he came from, who he learned under. I love all that stuff. I think that the idea of Reggie McKenzie is a solid one. I give him absolute credit for getting us out of the salary cap hell that our team was in. Al's final days, man, he was signing some goofy contracts, and it put the Raiders in a really tough position in terms of the salary cap, and Reggie McKenzie was the guy that got us out of that. But I think Reggie, as far as general manager go, might be one of those guys, like you look at coaches, right? Like you get your transitional coach and then you bring in your championship coach, right? You got your Mark Jackson and then you bring in Steve Kerr and you start running off championships, right? I think that Reggie McKenzie might have been the guy to bring in to help get us out of where we were, but he's not the one. Look, he's not the one to get us there. The guy's had, how many years now, and we still don't have inside linebackers. We still don't have safeties. We still don't have a right tackle. We still don't, some of these positions, Mikey, have been glaring needs for how long now, and we've never addressed them fairly. And so, to have this many holes on the roster, it only comes down to one guy, and it's not Gruden. Everybody can pick on Gruden all they want, but the personnel that this team has is 100% Reggie McKenzie up until the last 8 months. So there, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't, and I don't want to hear about the 12-4, all that stuff. Everybody freaking, we were in the playoffs. We had glaring issues back then too. If you think back to those days, Sean Smith was getting burnt by Brandon Cooks, man, when he was wearing a Saints uniform, right? We were bad back then too. Our defense was bad back then. We had the offense to overcome it. So Reggie McKenzie, I think, sadly, yes, he's going to be the scapegoat, but I think a lot of it though, he probably deserves.
Yeah. I mean, you could blame the coaches as well back in the days. The team itself hasn't been consistent with head coaches to really develop a system. So, whether Reggie drafts or the coaches draft or whatever, it's just inconsistency. There's no foundation, and that's the good thing about this rebuild and all this. Let's finally set it. Gruden has 10 years. Look, now I'm getting on the Gruden bandwagon. Gruden has 10 years, and let's just start it. Let's build a Raider way, a Patriot way, and every year we can draft under Gruden's system, whatever he wants. Please don't change offensive coaches. Don't change defensive coaches. Let's just do it for 10 years and let Reggie or whoever's drafting draft the players, and let's do it. Then we can blame. But for years, Reggie didn't have the coaches. He didn't know the scheme. The foundation wasn't set. So it was all over the place. But let's get it started. But I like that Mike Holmgren thing because he was at Raiders practice. And I like that conspiracy that Reggie, or he might replace Reggie. That's very interesting. And then in summary, I just want to say, I believe they need to fire Reggie now as soon as possible. All this bad news is happening. Get it done during the storm. Get it done now. Bring somebody in as soon as possible under Gruden to start scouting players, even the free agents that are going to be available in 2019. Do it now. And then that way, a little bit of stability starts with the franchise under Gruden, even halfway through the season. So I personally think you got to fire Reggie. If you're going to do it, you got to do it now. Or you got to name him as a new contract or something right away. Whatever decision Mark Davis makes, that's my opinion. You want to rebuttal on that, and then we'll get into the other stories from the game?
I agree with you there. Pull the Band-Aid off now. I'm with you on that. And, it wouldn't even surprise me, too, if maybe Holmgren gets brought in as director of player personnel or something to that effect, like some executive role or whatever, where both of them could maybe coexist. Because and the other thing I think about Holmgren that's important is that we've talked before about how the importance of the relationship between head coach and quarterback, right? And when you look at some of the most successful players and teams even in football, that whether that's Stabler and Madden, or if that's even Plunkett and Flores, or Bradshaw and Noel, or Brady and Belichick, Shula and Marino, right? You go on and on and on. Well, one of those was Holmgren and Favre. So if Derek Carr and John Gruden are to be the long-term solution, I believe that they are, of the Raiders, well, then nobody to better advise the two of them than Mike Holmgren, right? So I think it's a great fit and would be a great, even if he doesn't ever take on an official role in the organization, I hope, if anything, he can mentor Gruden in that aspect.
And then in the game, apparently John Gruden said in today's press conference, Martavis Bryant has a PCL tear injury, and he won't be available for some time. Wasn't working out anyway. So we can see what Marshall Aitman finally, let's see what he's got in the red zone. Your thoughts on both of these injuries? Yeah,
I think it's better to be, overcautious with somebody like Vanderdoes because he's not going anywhere. And clearly Gruden likes him. So, that's great. I'd rather, put him on the shelf for the rest of the year and get him back fully healthy for next year. And then, bummer about Bryant, man. That's one that, I don't hold him with the same kind of, venom as I had for like somebody like Bruce Irvin who underperformed, but Martavis Bryant has underperformed too. And I expected that he was going to be different. I expected he was going to be more, blow the top off the defense, get downfield, high point balls. I didn't expect him to be Randy Moss, but I expected to be something of that, at least that kind of game. And also a red zone threat. Like, he just doesn't have the physical capability to box somebody out and go up and get a football, which I kind of thought he was going to be that guy. So, kind of a bummer about Bryant, but we'll see how next year goes.
Yeah, if he doesn't beat people deep, they just get open. He lacks the skills to create separation, and he looks like a worse than Michael Crabtree when he tries to get separation. So Gruden's White Tiger is not working out for the Raiders. This was very interesting to me. Markel Lee did his best at middle linebacker all season, played great on occasion, struggled at occasions. But apparently Gruden and Paul Gunther moved him to Sam linebacker for this entire game. And I do remember him making some plays. And I was like, wow, he made some good. I didn't know they moved him to Sam linebacker, but I like him. Maybe that's a position for Markel Lee moving forward, and maybe the Raiders can draft a middle linebacker like I thought they should have did in Leighton Vander Esch last season. But, hey, your thoughts on Markel Lee moving to Sam linebacker, and if you thought he had a good game?
Yeah, of course. I thought he did fine, and look, the Raiders have got to do something. I mean, I was listening back to, because I knew that the linebacker question was going to come up during this show, and I listened back to the Raiders fan radio we did live during the draft. And, when we drafted Gary and Conley, and there was some other very good linebackers on the board still. And it's just like, you just hear the defeat in our voices that Conley, especially mine anyways, that Conley was the pick. And that's not a reflection necessarily on Conley. It was just the idea that, look, inside linebacker is still, it's not the position that it once upon a time, but it's still an incredibly important position to address. The middle of the field is still a very important thing to address, and the Raiders just haven't done it. So whatever they got to do to move people around to address the improved play at linebacker, whatever, I mean, then great. They need to do it. Because here's a stat for you, Mikey. Combined sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, and fumble recoveries from the Raiders' entire linebacker group this season. Okay? You know what that number is? You want to take a guess?
From the entire linebacker group.
Linebacker group, combined sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, and fumble recoveries. Combined together, how many of those have they had from the entire linebacker group this season?
Okay, well, there's like 3-4 sacks, so about 12.
0.
What?
0.
From
not one sack, one interception, no fumbles, no forced fumbles, no recoveries, nothing. There's a 0 for every. So whatever it is they want to try at linebacker, knock themselves out. They got to do something. And this is what I'm talking about. This is that reflection on Reggie, man. Like, come on, man. How long have we needed linebackers? Since Kirk Morrison and Thomas Howard? Like, I mean, sheesh, man. Like, we got to do the bar. Why is Bowman still on the scrap heap? Like, why is that? First off, why is he not on anybody's team? But why is he not a Raider? Like, come on, man. But even then, like, that's still patchwork. Like, why have we not done anything to effectively address these positions? Whitehead is a nice player, but he's complimentary. Like, why have we not dedicated the resources of the Raiders to somebody, a stalwart at middle linebacker? I don't get it. And I get it.
Especially last year, all the linebacker coaches. We had so many linebacker coaches with Jack Del Rio for 2 or 3 years, and then they didn't even draft a linebacker. And then last year, I wanted Leighton Vander Esch. I wanted to see the big pads, like behind his head and all that. I just thought that he played pretty good last night.
He did, and I thought that, it's funny because McKenzie's a linebacker, Del Rio is a linebacker, Ken Norton Jr. was a linebacker, and I thought, like, well, these guys just think they can coach up anybody to play linebacker, so that's why they've never drafted one. Well, now what's the excuse now, though? Like, why still have we not effectively? I don't know who in college is coming out. I don't think we're going to see a linebacker draft as good as it was a few years ago when it was Cunningham and Foster and all those guys. But you mentioned Vander Esch last year. I don't know, and I don't know who's out there for this year, but I'm going to start paying attention because I would certainly hope with 3 draft picks in the first round, whoever the high-profile linebackers are, inside linebackers are in college football, that they make it. One of them makes it onto the Raiders roster.
And I couldn't agree more. There's going to be a couple free agents. Again, will they want to come to the Raiders with, whatever's going on? I mean, literally, I was watching the game early on before he apparently got injured. But I was like, what the hell? He was falling. Derek Carr looked his way like 2 or 3 times, didn't get him the ball, wasn't targeted. I was like, where the hell? And he says all things. He does all the veteran right things in the media and press. And I was like, I picked him up on fantasy football, not to get me a lot of points, but I was like, dude, he's going to be our wide receiver, especially in the quick passing game with Derek Carr being pressured from the left. Get Jordy Nelson the ball in the slot. He has speed. Nothing's happening. I was going nuts. And now there's rumors that he's going to retire. I don't know. Give me your thoughts on this. Where the hell is Jordy Nelson? He shouldn't even be on this team now. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, he's another in a long series of letdowns that, whether it's the Raiders or anybody else, when you see these longtime players move on from organizations, there's a reason for it. There's a reason he's not a Packer anymore, and this is why. This is why, is that they saw the type of decline that they weren't comfortable with paying him what he was asking for. And, and I just, from this point forward, I'm just not going to be duped by the narratives anymore in terms of these players, because it doesn't matter if it's Jordy Nelson or it was, in our team's terms, it was Maurice Jones-Drew, or it was Justin Tuck, or it was, you see these players that come in, they're like, oh, they look great, and their preseason and their work ethic, and they hadn't lost a step, and blah, 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 blah. No, they have. That's why they're not around anymore. There's a reason that the Cowboys let Emmitt Smith go to the Arizona Cardinals. There's a reason that the Jets let Joe Namath go to the freaking, whoever, the Rams, and Johnny Unitas was a Charger, and Reggie Jackson. And, you look at Willie Mays went and played for the Mets. Like, you look, there's a reason that players move on from the organizations that they gain their fame and notoriety from. And it's just another one in the long list of that. And, and I think if we're really honest with ourselves, when we think back to that Miami game, right? Like, Jordy broke out, right? He had that great game. Well, he did, but he was also getting chased down by linebackers. And 5-6 years ago, you're not chasing, a guy wearing a number 55 is not chasing down Jordy Nelson from behind. There's no way in the open field. There's no way that would happen. But we saw that happen twice. We saw Jordy get chased down from behind. And I think if we're real honest with ourselves, that was a clear-cut indication that, look, this guy is not what he once was. He's just not the player that he once was. And now he might be able to go on and be a complimentary player somewhere and, be a Larry Fitzgerald guy to, extend his career even longer or whatever. I don't know. And I guess I wish him luck at it. But, I think his days as a Raider are definitely over, because you're right. He can't be the focal point of our offense. He's clearly not good enough to do that anymore.
It's just sad to think that this entire Raider season, for whoever's to blame, might, get a player that signed a $7.5 million contract to retire either at the end of the season or actually in the next couple weeks. I mean, there's a theory that I'm putting in my head right now. Maybe he could retire now, and then he can rest. And then next year, the Packers bring him on $1 million to continue a legacy, with the Packers or whatever. But that could happen. He could retire this year and then all of a sudden unretire next year, get a contract. I don't know, man. This is scary.
I don't know. Marshawn did it, right? So, I mean, there's precedent in the league that players do that, but I don't know. What is he already now? He's 32, right? So he would be, I don't know. I mean, if good for him if that's what he can do, but that's not what we need. That's not the right thing for our team right now. So, I'm just, again, unimpressed, completely unimpressed with Jordy. And I mean, if there's an offensive equivalent to the letdown of Bruce Irvin, then it's Jordy Nelson, right?
The injury report comes out for inactive players. I'm sorry, not injury report. The inactive players list comes out, and we signed Coney Ealy and Jockey Smith, and then they were labeled as out, as well as Shalik Calhoun, but he was put back in there. I just thought it was interesting. We went into the game basically with 3 defensive ends, but it was 4 because Shalik played. But what does that say for Coney Ealy? If Jockey Smith was signed as a defensive end at the same time that week that he plays and Coney Ealy doesn't, how good is Coney Ealy? It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. These roster games where they're jockeying players around week to week. I mean, rotating out the bottom guys. I mean, who knows? They're just, look, they trade or not trade, but they get rid of a player like Bruce Smith, and you got to start playing the roster game to fill a spot. And you just take shots at guys, and I don't know. I don't think it's at the end of the day, nothing. At the end of the day, Dennis Allen. At the end of the day, it's not of any consequence long term, right? So I don't know. They churn that stuff up and let it go.
I just meant that, he was the star signing for that week. Over $1 million. I think he was the star defensive end to replace Bruce Irvin, and then he doesn't even get activated. And then we get some guy named Jockey Smith. It boggles my mind. You're
being very kind calling that the star signing.
Well, it is for this season. It's Vets Day. So I wanted to respect the veterans that are a part of my family's to Murf's family. And I wanted to share a little story about each So Murf, explain this picture to the public.
Yeah, that's my dad. So my dad enlisted into the Marine Corps fresh out of high school in 1967 or 66 or 67, whatever year it was that he graduated. But anyways, he enlisted in the Marine Corps. So back when a lot of people were dodging the draft, my father enlisted to go serve his country overseas and fight in the Vietnam War. And my dad was a Marine, and there's no such thing as a former Marine. You enlisted in the Marine Corps, and you're a Marine until the day you pass. And so my dad epitomized that incredibly. He was a Marine until the day he died, and so I'm proud as heck of him. He was a good man, and sadly we just lost him just a little over 2 years ago. But yeah, so that's my dad. That's my pops right there, man.
Any story you can share from either a war or service?
Yeah, he was in an interesting thing back then called radio relay, where they would back then, before satellites and all that kind of stuff and the way that we communicate nowadays, everything was set up in these radio relay bunkers. And so my dad never had to, at least not on the regular basis, encounter firefight from handheld weapons. He was an artillery dodger. Like, he was the guy that was running in between bunkers, dodging artillery shells, because basically you had these long lines of radio relay bunkers set up, and the Vietnamese would try to take out the bunker, and then because if you take one out in the line, then you take out all the communications there in between. So my dad was the guy dodging that stuff, running around in between, repairing the bunkers and the relays. So kind of heavy duty, man, but as it was for anybody that served over there, especially the Marines, man. First in, last out for the Marines.
Yeah, this is your father as well, I'm assuming. I didn't know if it was two different people.
Yeah, that's my grandfather there. Now my grandfather was in the Navy for World War II, and that's him there. Yeah, so that's my grandfather. I didn't know him. He passed away before I was born. He passed away. My mom was 12 years old when he died, so he died long before I was born. But we do know, or I know, that he was in the Navy and served in World War II, and so and that's him.
Yeah, so respect to you and your family. So your father's father was also in the military.
That's my mom's dad. That's my grandfather on the other side. So my dad, but there's more too. My father-in-law was in the Air Force. My Uncle Mosh, who's a co-host on Raiders Fan Radio, he served in the Air Force. We have a lot of members of our family have served, but those were just two of the pictures I decided to share with you there. So yeah, my dad and my grandfather.
Well, beautiful, and thank you, your family, and everybody, just for putting in the good fight. That is my father. His name was Wyman Dwight Bauer. He passed away last year at the 88. He was a Marine. He was in the Marine. If I can remember correctly, forgive me, I'm pretty bad with certain things, but I think it was called the 51st Marine Division. He was a drummer. He was in the Korean War. But I love you, my dad. I love you. You're my hero. Thank you for your service. Thank you and your family, Murf, for your service, and every veteran or anybody out there fighting, doing their job. I'm here from Heart and Murf's. We love you all. Get home safe.
Absolutely.
Happy Veterans Day. Okay, it's time for the game preview. Raiders face the Cardinals. Give me your expectations, X Factor, and predict. Let's try to move on, Murf.
I don't know, man. I don't know where to go anymore with this stuff. I just, I hope to see the young guys on defense get loose again. I want to see Arden Key finally get to the quarterback. I'm really rooting for him. There's been a lot of criticism here lately about, maybe some of the moves that he had in college are not translating to the NFL, and he's got to diversify his pass rush to really kind of, gain that separation from the tackles and get to the quarterback. So I'm kind of rooting for him. I'm definitely rooting for Mo Hurst. So, what am I going to look for in the game? Just something. Again, here's what I would say then. Like I mentioned about the game this last week, the Raiders got to finish those plays. Worley, when you drive on that ball, make that interception, return that thing to the house. You know what I mean? Let's see these guys finish some of these plays. I think that would go a long way in us getting a win. Like you said, the Cardinals are not good. You got a rookie quarterback over there. There should be an opportunity for us to make some plays on defense. And then, so I don't know, probably not a very high scoring affair again. I mean, we hadn't scored a touchdown in 3 games? 2 games at least. So I don't know. I'm gonna say Raiders lose 17-10.
All right. Again, You would think these should be some of the funnest segments of our show, is to do game previews and all that. And it's like, we don't know what to expect on a daily basis with this team or anything this year. I expect consistency somewhere. I don't know where. I want something to get better. Defense looked okay at times last week. Maybe we're going to have the same defensive structure last week that we'll have again in this game, and they can build upon that. Derek Carr, I'm worried of Arizona's defense. Ain't no joke. They're pretty good as well. I don't know if Derek Carr is going to progress. This might be a game where, because of all the media attention and all that we're seeing on the field, I'm nervous about this being an A.J. McCarron game where maybe Derek Carr is pulled. But those are my fears, but that's not what I'm trying to project. The X factor for the game could be, let's go Marshall Aitman. I don't know. Prediction, I'll give it on my Mikey's pregame fix. There it is, Murf. We had a lot of technical issues. It kept going in and out online. They're now labeled my station Off-Air Nation. We are no longer on Air Nation.
That's pretty funny.
Off-Air Nation.
That's pretty funny. I'm up for a well-played joke. That's pretty funny. Good job, guys. Good job, chat room.
But hey, I might have to upload the show after, but whatever. We got through the show. We did it like champions. Me and Murf had a good time. We talked some Raiders, and there was not really any hatred toward any single person or any bad vibes and honesty from this show. So I'm very proud I was able to hopefully make it that much better, Murf.
Good job, Mikey. You did a good job tonight, buddy. It was a fun show. And, look, man, there's not going to be any glorious revelations. The skies are going to part and the suns they're going to shine down and the angels are going to sing and the Raiders are going to be like, oh, that's what's wrong. And then we're going to be able to fix it and then make the playoffs like that. That's not going to happen. So, we can't rally against the dark, so we'll just kind of turn up the light best we can and just, accept it for what it is, man, and just enjoy the idea that, look, we're going to get 7 more Raiders football games until the offseason, so I'm going to enjoy every single one of them for what they are because it's the silver and black on Sunday, and you know what? That's going to go by really fast, and pretty soon it's going to be, we're going to be watching other teams play, and then it's going to be the offseason, and we're all going to be crying for Raiders football, so I'm just going to enjoy these 7 games for what they are, even as bad as they may be.
Man, I'm going to hope for a victory every game. I'm going to get mad, but hopefully before Mondays with Mike and Murf, I can calm my butt down and just realize we're alive, we're blessed, and move on. But I'm going to tell you this, with all this debacle, Murf, that's been going on and how we can't even get a victory or look good on offense, on that Thursday night game at home versus the Steelers, that might be the best upset game, or if it's rigged, where we might win, make Raider Nation happy, win versus the Steelers somehow, just to solidify this entire season. So that's my conspiracy I'm throwing out.
Sounds good, man. I hope you're right. We got to get one more in there. Sure would be nice to knock off somebody high profile like the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the game I want to win.
Or
sorry, I cut you off.
My Uncle Murf used to refer to them the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're named after the town that was named after a frozen block of urine.
I'm looking forward to that game. I can't wait. Whatever. I'm going to have a great Thursday night football. All right, Murf, who's playing tonight? Is it the Giants?
And then
I don't know.
So we got the Giants and the Niners tonight. So the battle of teams that are just as hopeless as we are. And then next week on Monday Night Football, they have the Chiefs and the Rams. So talk about going from nothing to something, right? They're going from 2 of the worst teams in football to 2 of the best. So I'll probably watch this game with one eye on my phone or something. You know what I mean? But next week will certainly have my attention when it's the Chiefs and Rams.
All right. Who wins and why? And does Nick Mullins look like Tom Brady again versus the Giants defense?
I can't imagine anybody does as bad against the Niners as what we did. So I'm going to say that the Giants win. This is like one of those games where just when you count Eli out, when he's getting all the criticism in the world, then all of a sudden he balls out. And especially against a bad defense like the Niners have. I mean, somebody look, Beckham is 10 times the playmaker of anybody that we've ever had at wide receiver this year. So I definitely think that they're going to break out, and I think they're going to win big.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Mondays with Mike and Murf. You can catch Murf on Raiders Fan Radio or in the YouTube description that will be down below. And you can catch him on Twitter at, as you can see, green at _Murf and at Raiders Fan Radio on Twitter, Instagram. We are Monday and Murf, and we will see you next May. There it is. He's just throwing out the pea shine. We are out.